Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Swift Map tool so we can do some cool stuff with maps and how we can actually show geolocation information inside a project using Swift to do some cool stuff. And we have our different basic types we have to demonstrate this. We have a styled map, annotations and markers, using the camera, looking at interests, and also how we can work with a polyline inside the map itself. So those are the things we're going to be looking at as we go ahead and take a look at this. And so we can see how we can actually go through and build this together. Taking a look over here at the demo view, you can see this is what would normally be the content view file. This is the one that we just start off with our thing. It's our opening scene for our app. And so we have our body of some view, and I use a navigation stack. Embedded in that navigation stack, I have a list with my values that I'm working with. And so I have my navigation links for each of those different views we're looking at with a text followed by the destination that we're working with. And so we're going to go ahead and take a look at each of these different components, see how we can make that work, and we can go ahead and do that. Before we actually go and take a look at the actual information about the map, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the background we do to actually use a map. We have some information we have to work with. And so we're going to go ahead and take a look at those components really fast before we actually go into the details of the maps themselves. So the first thing we're going to do is we have a model object we're working with. And so our model object is how we can actually identify each of these components we're working with. It's just a quick little struct that's identifiable. As you can see, I've got an ID, a title, details, and a location that uses an MK coordinate region. That MK prefix indicates it's part of MapKit, so that's why we have that import MapKit on that for there, so we can actually work with that. Over here in utilities.swift, this is where I'm putting all of our component information to actually work with this. As you can see, we have an array of computing impacts we've initialized with some specific locations from computer science history. So we've got Bletchley Park, Grace Hopper Park, Ada Lovelace statue, the Katherine Johnson statue, and for fun, Coney Island, because hey, why not? And so we've got those information components right there, and these are computing impacts. So we have that MK coordinate region with a center of a CL location with a lat and long, and then a span that says how big of a space to do for that. So go ahead and squish this down so we don't have to look at it right now. We also have a nifty categories and a boring categories type, which are the MK point of interest category type. So it's an array of those specific things, so we can take a look at some of our other components. And so I have amusement park, beach, library and theater, and then ATM, gas station, parking, and an EV charger. Some basic stuff you might want to actually look at when you're actually creating a map tool. And then I have my impact points, which is a coordinate 2D location, where I'm using the locations of those 5 different locations just as a specific array I can reference inside my maps to talk about those specific locations. So I have information we can use across the app itself, using that reference to go back and build the rest of our pieces. So going back to the actual demo view right here. So again, all these demo views are using those different points inside the map so we can address computer science, but also we can take a look at how to use those map components as we look at each of these pieces. So let's go ahead and take a look at the individual maps, starting with the basic map. Here we have our basic map view. And so I've got my text where I'm going to read that impact from demoimpact.title plus demoimpact.detail, so I can grab that information, Bletchley Park, home of the bomb for Alan Turing. And then I'm using a map, and I'm using the initializer with an initial position where it's going to grab the region, and it's using demoimpact_sub0.location. So I'm going to use that location component as the region I'm working with it. And I'm saying, hey, make that map be a frame, a height of 300. So I can specify that. So right here we have just a basic map. As you can see, it's a very basic, easy to see map. I can click and drag around that. I can work within that. And if I was using it on a device, I could use the my thumbs to actually screen around that. But you can see it's just really basic. It has a couple names of information. And we have the actual location right here called out with a little thing like, oh, here's Bletchley Park that we give as the specification for that location. So that's just a quick basic map. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next one. So we're going to take a look at styling of the map. So again, we're using a different location this time. And so a map styling of subtitle, of sub1.title into details. So we have Grace Hopper Park near her home in DC. And we're looking at we're looking at 3 different ways of actually looking at the map itself. So we have our imagery right here, which is a satellite view. And we can see the actual satellite view of that area of DC itself. We have the hybrid map, which is the idea of taking the street type overlay map that we see and then overlaying that on top of the actual satellite imagery. So you can see we have the road information right here for 395 and Columbia Heights on top of the actual satellite information right here. And we access that by using the map style modifier of the map option. So I have .map style imagery, .map style hybrid, and then I have a map style standard, which is just a road type map instead of the style, the actual detail of an actual satellite-based piece of information. So you can see how we can actually look at the same location in 3 different ways with imagery, hybrid, and the standard approach. So you can actually work with that really well. So it's just a great way we can actually work within that. The next one we have is the idea of annotations and markers. We want to make sure to actually give some information to our app. And so I'm going to go over here and click on the annotation with markers one. And so you can see right here, again, I'm using that same approach. I've got a VStack with sub2.title of annotation and markers. And I have 2 different map instances right here. So I have the initial position, which is sub2's.location. And I put an annotation this time. And so in annotation, you can see I have that cute little computer icon right here because I'm using the annotation of a desktop computer as the image for that where the Lady Lovelace statue is. I can also do that same approach by using the standard marker type, and that marker is just that little pin that you'd see like, oh, here's a pin for that. And in this case, I'm tinting it mint because, hey, why not? And you can see there's different ways to actually show the same information using either annotation and markers. And so we just put that in as a value inside the map. So we put a closure attached to the map itself, and we create either an annotation or marker inside the closure for the map creation status. And so it's a great way we can actually add detail to a specific location on a map. And so that's the way we can actually work with that. The next thing we want to do is be using a camera for a map. So if we're using a camera for a map, we can actually change the way we look at the map itself. And so you can see right here, I've got the @state private var specific camera position, which is a map camera position who initialized based on the camera of the coordinates that we're looking at of sub 1's location, using a distance of 140, a heading of 0, and a pitch of 40. So that's telling us how to look at this. And then I'm going to put a stack on here of maps. So I've got the base map right here, where I have just initial position of that region, using the basic standard approach. And then I'm using that camera to take us back and actually look at that using that pitch of 40 right here. And so I'm using that, how much to pitch with that, and if it doesn't have a default value, putting it to 0, and I use that specific camera position. If I go up here and I change that pitch, instead of 40, we'll change that to 80, and you can see, oh wow, I've changed exactly how I'm looking at this. Now I've got almost a front end looking at this, so I actually see how I'd be looking at this as if I were looking like walking or driving down the street. I can see a more visual approach to that, and hey, here's where Grace Hopper Park is, and guess what? There's also Planet Fitness right there. So this is a really cool way you can actually take the camera of the angle of the camera of where you're looking at that, and you can use this to do some really cool manipulation of information and actually make your app even more interactive by using the camera positions, using the pitch, the distance, and the heading on that, so you can say, I'm going to look at this in this direction. And of course, since this is a state value, you could actually use this with a binding value and get information from the user themselves, share that to the actual thing. You can actually use that for augmented reality type approach, so you can actually do some really cool stuff with this. It's a great way you can actually build with map to make even more interactive components inside your thing. Our next thing we have is the idea of using points of interest. And so we have some nifty categories like an amusement park or a beach. And you can see right here, oh cool, I've got the Coney Island Beach Amusement Park. I'm gonna go ahead and double click on this. And you can see my Coney Island Beach, I've got a cute little one right there for that. I scroll down a little bit too fast here. Double click on this one, get a little bit closer. And we can see that we've got those point of information. Oh look, there's the amusement park. We can see that right there for the amusement park with that. And so we have the information we can store with that. We can also take a look at that using the boring categories right here of an ATM, gas station, EV charger. So I'll click over here and I'll go to pass this over here to this. And if I double click in here and I look over here, oh look, there is a gas station right here with a BP indicator. So I can say, oh look, and there's a mobile and a Shell. So I can see that I've got gas station information right here versus the idea of a Coney Island beach and boardwalk right here, or the amusement park over here with this one. So I can see the idea, like here are the information I want to look at. And so you can use this in combination with any of the other previous things we've worked on. You can add information to your map by using the built-in features that are already supplied in the map, or can be added to it by giving custom values to those locations and saying, hey, here's where something cool is. You can like say, here's where the party is, or here's where my park is, and we can do this cool stuff. So you can add information to this by using the idea of points of interest, having categories of things and assigning those categories to a specific location, or reading from the data that's already built into the actual app system. So it's really cool stuff we can do. The last one we're going to take a look at is the idea of using a line. And so we can use the idea of a map polyline. We can draw across the thing. And so in this case, I've got all the points inside impact points. So all the different locations we're looking at. And you can see that we have all these different locations. We can connect a line between them. And so I can say, oh, I'm going to go from Coney Island to the Grace Hopper Park to the Katherine Johnson statue. I'm going to go all the way back over here. Squishy squish, whoop, a little bit too far. And there's the Ada Lovelace statue. And of course, the Bletchley Park location, so we can grab that. So we can actually create lines to go to this. And so this is really helpful. As you can see, when we're going across a global map like this, it gets really stretched out. But if you want to say, for example, have a path, like say, for example, you want to do an app where you're going to have someone have to follow a path or do something for, follow a running path or something like that, or get path information from where they actually did run, you can grab that information using the app, pull that up and then draw onto the actual map saying, oh, here's where I went, using the information from there. You can draw a map across that. So you can actually grab the information from the raw data you send to your app and do some really cool stuff. And so this is just a quick way you can actually use maps to do some good stuff. Again, all this is working with inside the MapKit. You can see that we have the idea of working with polylines, using the interest categories, changing the camera position by using the values with that and changing the pitch. And so if we change it to 80, it obviously looks more like a front end for that versus the 40 where it's a high back. adding annotations and markers. And you can use any of the system names for that. You can even use custom images with that as well. I used a system name image because it was really quite nice to do with that. We can use just a regular image as well. And then styling with that, we can actually set different types of maps to work with that. We have the hybrid, the standard, as well as the imagery based, so you can do some cool stuff on there. And finally, just a regular basic map, if you want to show a location, you simply just give it a region and a height, so you can actually specify where you want to show that information off. I hope this is a helpful way you can do some cool stuff with maps. Cheers, see you next time, and have a great day. Bye-bye.